Hey guys, how's it going? It's Dylan again and welcome back to my channel. So first of all, thank you very much for watching this video. I really appreciate your time. And if you haven't done so, please subscribe to the link below because that's really going to help me in bringing more videos like this or better videos like this. And today I'm pretty excited because I'm actually going to walk you through how to create a certificate for an iOS build. In this case, it's going to be a game, but we're going to be going through the process of going into our Macs and then creating a certificate from the key change, then exporting that certificate, uploading the certificate to the iOS platform. Once we have that in the iOS platform, we're gonna be downloading a provisioning profile, which we're gonna be using for signing our application. So let's jump into Unity and start looking at what we need to do. All right guys, so let me show you what we're gonna be doing today. So this is a game that I built a few years ago, and the game was built for Mac, iOS, and the Apple TV. So the game name is Cubics, and what I did on this game is actually, if I go to scenes, you can see there's a game scene, there's a game Mac scene, and a TV OS. This game scene is for Android and iOS, and then the other ones are for the platform that it stays in the name. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some of the settings for iOS that you need to enable when you're building for iOS. Of course, you have to select the scene that you want to build to iOS. Then if you haven't selected the platform iOS, make sure that you do that. Once you do that, just basically switch to the platform. Then you should see the Unity icon next to the platform. If you don't see these platform enabled, that means that you probably didn't install that component during the installation. So basically go back to unity.com and then find the product that you downloaded and download the installer, and you should be able to just install that component based on the version that you have. If you have done so, then go into player settings once you have done that, and there are some settings that I need you to check that we'll basically have to update it. The first one is going to be the company name. I have it set to Dilmer Games. The product name is going to be, this is going to be the product that displays in your iOS device. Then the version number that you want to build. Then the default icon. I have an icon that it's basically has 1024 by 1024. The reason why I did it so large is because iOS and Apple actually requires a large resolution of the icon. So with doing it that way, I basically can resize it, and I think this version of Unity will do that as well. Once we build it, it'll resize and create multiple versions. If it doesn't do that, we'll have to do some tweaking to some of the icon area settings, which I haven't messed around. I noticed that this was added recently. So for now, we're just gonna skip that. And if it doesn't work, we'll go back through and make sure that we have icons for all these different versions. Then on the resolution and presentation, of course, if you wanna enable portrait mode or landscape mode or even auto rotation, you can do that here. You can also determine if it requires full screen, if you want to show the status bar or not, also the status bar style. So there's a lot of different settings here under resolution and presentation. Then I'm going to close these build settings just for 1 second because I need to show you the splash screen. So that's another thing that you'll be able to do. You'll be able to preview the splash screen. If you don't have the professional version of Unity, you won't be able to change the splash screen, so you'll still be able to see the Unity splash screen. But if you buy either the Plus version or the professional, you should be able to modify some of these changes. The other thing that is cool is I can go here under the game view, and you can select all different type of devices. If I want to do, for instance, the iPad and see how that looks on the iPad, or if I want to do the iPhone, the one that I have, which is an iPhone XS, you can do it in landscape, and you can also do it in portrait. In my case, I only do it in portrait because that's the only mode that I support. And of course, if you hit play, everything should resize, correctly based on that resolution. It looks like everything is working fine. So that's basically the splash screen. You can go and change the background, the opacity, and there's a lot of settings in there about that. Then down in the debugging and crash reporting, if you want to enable, the internal profiler, if you want to enable crash reporting, then you can do that here. I haven't messed with these settings that much, so you're more than welcome to do that. And under other settings, there's a lot of things that we need to look at that are very important. So if you want to if you want to support the metal editor support, then you can enable that option. There's also multi-threaded rendering that I enable, static batching, dynamic batching that I enable, and some of these settings were already set, so I left them intact without touching them. And other settings that are very important here that you're gonna need to match against what you have in the, basically under certificates in iTunes, is the bundle identifier. So this basically states, is normally the format of your website. So if you don't have a website now, don't worry about it. Just make sure that you come up with a bundle identifier that is unique. And in my case, my website is dilmergames.com, so it's normally the reverse of that. So com meaning the the extension of the domain, then Dilmergames being the host, and then Cubics is basically the subdomain, which in this case happened to be the app. So that's basically the format of the bundle identifier, and then the version number and the build number. I also know my team ID already, so I put that there. I'll show you where to find that if you want to set it automatically here. And if you don't set that, you can still set it once you build this and open it in Xcode. And you also have the option to automatically sign it. So it looks like all of this is good. And the other settings that are important here is the target device. So if you want to build for universal, which is what I'm doing, which is iPhone and iPad, then select both, otherwise select the specific one. Then the target SDK is also very important because if you select simulator, that basically is going to create a project that can run on the simulator. And in my experience, building to the simulator is actually not productive because it doesn't actually run well. You can basically see an image and it's very slow. So what I recommend you do is, have multiple devices, build it to the device, test it on the device, and then that works better that way. Then the other thing that is important is the minimum iOS version that you want to support. So you want to make sure that you do that. Architecture, universal, like I was talking about here. That one is very important, and I haven't really changed any other settings in here, so we're not gonna mess with any of those. So that's basically everything that we need to do on the Unity side as far as configuration. It's basically the under player settings, so company, product, version, icons needs to be there, basically the splash screen, the resolution that you're gonna support, and then some of the bundle identifier information that is gonna allow you to sign the game. And okay, so now that we have that done, the next thing that we need to do is we need to actually build this game. And by building, we need to create basically a build that can run in Xcode. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click on File, Build Settings, and then go to Build. And before we hit Build, one thing that is important to know is if you're doing a development build, you want to change this to debug and also development build, because that's going to give you more information. Also, if you want to attach to the debugger, you want to enable that. But because we're doing a release build, I'm just going to set it to release because that's basically going to go to the Apple Store. But if you're still in debugging, in kind of like a beta alpha mode, make sure that you have that set to debug. Then the next thing that we need to do is basically build it. So I already built it previously because I didn't really want to have you wait for the build process to complete. But all I have right now is basically a folder in my desktop that is called builds_cubics, and then inside of that folder I have a cubics folder that actually has the build. So once you hit save, it'll basically create the structure that I have already created for you. And what it gives you is, we go here and I'm going to my Finder, and what I'm going to show you is what's going to give me. So you want to make sure that you open it by looking at the Xcode proj file. So it's going to have the Xcode icon on it. So once you find it, just double click it. And it's going to open Xcode here in a minute. There we go. And if you haven't downloaded Xcode, make sure that you download Xcode before you do this. Otherwise, it's going to prompt you to do that. And it's also going to ask you to download the command line tools, so which I already did. So make sure you have Xcode downloaded first, the command line tools downloaded as well. Once you have that and you have Unity with iOS, then you should be able to do what I'm doing right now. So the next thing that we need to do that I haven't shown you yet is we need to create a certificate. So right now I have a certificate. Looks like I have a signing certificate, which is the iPhone developer, and I also have a team. So, but you're not going to have that because you're starting from scratch. So I want to show you what the process is to do that. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to revoke the certificate that I already have, and we're going to start from scratch. So I'm going to close Xcode because that's one of the main purposes of this video, is to show you how to create a certificate, how we can upload the certificate to iTunes so that we can get a provisioning profile, and then how do we use that provisioning profile to sign our app, which therefore we can use to basically send our game to the Apple Store to be accepted. Okay, so the first thing that I gotta do is I have to go into my key change and open it up. So I basically did command space and then search for key change. Once I have a key change, in this case, you don't have to do this. I'm doing this because I want to revoke my certificate. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna find anything that says iPhone, and I'm just gonna delete it. I'm gonna delete everything that I have in there. I'm also gonna delete the Mac certificates. I can redo all these later, so that's fine. And I think I'm good there, and I think I'm good there as well. Okay, so we're good. So I'm basically starting from scratch. I don't have a certificate. Oh, and I need to delete this one as well. So let me delete the Mac developer. Okay, so I'm going to show you the steps that we need to follow. So let's go ahead and bring it back. And so once you bring it back, key change access. So if you go to where it says key change access on the very top, and then go to certificate assistant, you're going to have different options. You're going to have a create a certificate option, create a certificate authority, then create a certificate from someone. And some of these options, you know, from time to time, I get very confused because they're also, if you don't look at them all the time, you're going to think that you know which one it is. And so the one that we need to select is request a certificate from a certificate authority. So that's the one that we're going to do. And the user email address, this is the email that I normally use, is the email that I log into, to iTunes with. So just make sure that you select, your Apple ID, which is going to be in that case. Common name, I really don't select anything there. CA email address, I don't select anything there either. And the other thing that I do is just save it to the disk. So make sure that you have that selected, hit continue. And we're gonna go and put the certificate somewhere. So in this case, I'm just gonna put it in my desktop. And it says now you have a certificate request and has been created. If you click on show in Finder, so this is our certificate that we have created with our Mac. So now that we have that, let's go into Chrome. And thought I had it open. Okay, so let's open it up. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna search for Member Center in Google. You can also go directly to developer.apple.com. I got used to searching for that over the years. Then go into that URL. Once you've gone into that URL, you're gonna go into account. And Apple is now basically requiring that you enable two-factor authentication for developer accounts. So I already did that. I had a lot of problems without having that. It didn't let me get in here. So, and of course I have to update my credit card. I know that Apple, I already updated my payment. So yeah, so my developer account doesn't expire until August, but Apple wants me to update the credit card because they want to get paid. So just ignore that for now. So the area that I want to focus on is certificate IDs and profiles. So let's click on that. And if you notice, you're going to have multiple options in here on this drop down. You're going to have iOS, tvOS, watchOS, Mac, and Safari extensions. For this video, we're going to concentrate on iOS. So I'm just going to have that selected. Then you notice I already uploaded a certificate, so we're going to delete it as well. Basically revoke it. You don't need to do that because you're starting from scratch, so I want to show you that process. So once you've done that, you're going to click on, basically once you're starting from scratch and you have created a certificate that we created through our Mac, we're going to click on this plus symbol. And it's going to ask us what we want to do. What kind of development are we doing? So we're going to basically do iOS app development. And it's going to ask us, okay, what do we want to use this certificate for? Is it for the App Store? Is it an ad hoc? Is it for push notifications? Is it for a WatchKit service certificate? So they added a lot of different settings since I looked at this. The one that we want to use is the App Store and ad hoc. then click on continue. And this is basically going to walk you through what we just did. Go to the key change access, certificate assistant, request a certificate from the certificate authority, and then basically what we just did. Then hit continue, choose file, and when we're choosing for a file, we're choosing for the certificate that we created. We're going to hit open, and we're going to now hit continue, and we're getting an invalid certificate. Let's see what we did wrong. So what we did, oh, the common name, yeah, let's do that one more time. And it'll be good practice to do it one more time. So what I'm gonna do is go back to the key change and go to file, actually key change access. And you can now see why I do this multiple times, because every time I do it, it's, you know, once every so often. Okay, there we go. So this is gonna be info@dilmergames.com, which happen to be my domain and my email. So this is what it's telling us to do. So we did that. In the certificate information, enter the following. So we enter the email. In the common name, create a name for the private key. Okay, so in this case, I'm just gonna say Dilmer Games Dev Key. And the CA email address field should be left empty, and the request is group save to this. Okay, so I think we just missed the common name. Okay, so now let's select save to the disk, and we'll just basically use that default name. That's fine, and we can hit done. I think that's the only thing that we did wrong. Let's just do it one more time, make sure that that is okay. Okay, and that was the issue. We need to make sure that we have a name in that field. Okay, so now that I have a certificate created, we're gonna click on download, and it's gonna give us a cert. So it's gonna select it and open it, and you can now see that I have it right here, and it tells us when it's going to expire. So let's see, March 27, 2020. That's when it's going to expire. And even if you open it up, you can see, you know, some of the information that we enter. Let's see if we can see. Yeah, basically the entire signature, the authority, and yeah, some information that I normally don't even look at, but it tells, you know, it was issued by Apple Inc., Apple Worldwide Developer Relations. So we have a certificate that guarantees that we are who we say we are. We can see the organization, and we can see that we have an iPhone distribution, and that is in our key change. So we're trusted by Apple. Okay, perfect. So now what's the next step? So the next step is to create an Apple ID. So an Apple ID, it's gonna basically determine, you know, what app you're creating. In my case, I already did this, so I'm not gonna do it again, but I'm gonna show you what you have to do. So in my case, I have, you know, Cubics, and then basically this is the ID. So you'll basically click on add. The app ID is gonna be, you know, your game name. The explicit ID, the explicit app ID. So remember the bundle identifier that we put into Unity. This is where that comes in play. So in my case, I did com.dilmer games, and then I did Cubics. So it was the extension, the host, and in this case, it's gonna be the app name. So that's what they recommend that you do. So make sure that those match. And then you gotta select which services you're gonna be enabling. Once you do that and hit create, you're gonna get something like this. So in my case, I have a bunch because I have multiple games and multiple apps. So you can see that in my case, I have in-app purchases enabled because I'm charging for in-app purchases, and I also have the game center. So you're, you know, depending on what you're building, you might want to select different options. Okay, so once we have created that, now we have to go to the next step, which is to create a provisioning profile. So now to do that, in this case, I'm gonna be doing a distribution provisioning profile because we're gonna be distributing to the Apple Store. And I happen to have expired profile, so which is great because that way I can show you what we need to do. So what I need to do is okay, so we're gonna hit the plus symbol, go into development, select iOS app development, and of course the distribution is gonna be the Apple Store. Okay, so I guess if you're doing development for iOS, this will be a development provisioning profile. And then if you're doing distribution, you're gonna do distribution app store, which is what we're gonna be doing. So now the app ID this is where that comes in play, because you're gonna have to select the Apple, basically the app ID that we created previously. So in my case it's CubeX, so I'll select that, hit continue. Now this is very important as well, because it's gonna ask us for the certificate that we created previously. So we're gonna select, yeah, I want to use that certificate, and remember that expires in March 26, 2020. If we go to our, well, I guess it's funny, is basically off by 1 day, but it's basically the same. It's basically the same one. So we select that and then hit continue. And now we need to give this a name. I normally use the, basically if it's development, I type in development. If it's distribution, so I say distribution, and then the distribution what you're building. So I'm gonna say building CubeX for iOS. So if you're doing development, you can change that to development. So now I'm just gonna hit continue, and I'm also gonna download that cert. And it's not a cert, it's actually a provisioning profile. So now click it to open it up, and that should get added to the key change as well. Now if we go back into the key change, I should be seeing something else in here. And let me just make sure that I select it correctly. And go into downloads, and I should see the, oh, okay, I see. So this is a little bit different now, because it actually has mobile provision. And if I go into Xcode, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna double click on the app that we already built, and I'm going to also double click this guy, and that's actually gonna get added to Xcode for you. So it used to be that it used to get added to the key change, and now it gets added to here. And the other thing that we can check is if you go to Xcode and go into, let's see, go into preferences and go into the Apple ID that we're building a game for. And there's another option nowadays that you can use, which is to download profiles for you. So if you look at it, I have, my team, which is under info, and it's Dilmer Games. And you can see that I have an iOS development certificate and I have an iOS distribution certificate. So these happen to be added as soon as I double click on that. So I double click it, and then it basically got added to Xcode. If it doesn't get added, you can always, if I do iOS distribution here, you can see that it's, basically requesting and seeing, do I have a provisioning profile that was for iOS distribution? I do, so it got created. So if we go back down here, we can see that I now have, distribution of CubeX for iOS, and that one is active. Excellent. So that looks good. And you can also do manage certificates, which is going to take you to the same place anyways. So we have an iOS distribution, we have a certificate. Okay, so that's all good to go. Now we can close out of this. So now that you have that selected, you're going to be able to see if you enable automatically manage signing, it's going to manage the signing for you. And it should automatically look up the, the signing certificate and then everything that you need to sign the application. So if you don't want to do that automatic way, you can always do it yourself. So if you uncheck that, you can go here and say, okay, this is basically the distribution profile that I need. And it looks like right now it's saying that, let's see, the provisional profile distribution CubeX for iOS doesn't include the signing certificate for iPhone distribution, blah, 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 blah. So that's what I normally use automatically, enable automatic signing. And then I just select my team and it handles everything for me. So I think all we really need is the signing certificate. Once you have the signing certificate, everything should just work fine. So let's go into key change. Let me make sure. Yeah, so I have the signing certificate in here. And I also have the distribution. And it looks like that looks good. And that looks fine. Okay, perfect. Let me do one thing just to make sure that that's gonna work. So let's go to preferences. And let's see, manage certificates, iOS distribution. And this one expired. This one, oh, this is when it was created. It hasn't expired yet. So yeah, if you might not need to do everything that I show you as far as like the provisioning profile. You will need to do certificate creation, because that's basically what's going to allow you to, to create a provision to actually sign your game. So once you have that, then you can enable automatic manage signing, and it might just create the permissioning profile for you automatically. If it doesn't, then just follow the steps that I just showed you. So once that is all good to go, all you gotta do is basically go to product and then archive, and then that's gonna archive the application and also sign the application with the certificate that we gave it. And this process might take a few minutes to complete, and that's fine. So the other thing that is important is you need to make sure that when you're archiving, you also, if you're gonna send something to iOS, you also need to go to App Store Connect, and that's what I'm gonna do next to show you. And we're gonna go into, let's see, make sure that this is the account, because I have multiple accounts. Okay, this is the account. So you wanna go into your apps, and just like I said before, you need to make sure that you have a developer account with Apple. And I'm gonna say, let me just show me the ones that are ready for sale. So this is the games that I'm basically selling. So in my case, see, Cubix is already on version 1.0.9. And if I go into Cubix, you want to make sure that you create a new app version before you upload, because right now if I go to the activity, see, I'm already in version, let's see. So these are the iOS builds. These don't need to match what you have here. This is what gets displayed to the customer when they go and buy it. So what you can do is you can create a new version here. I can say, okay, I'm going to create a version 1. Let's say that I jump in all the way to 2, because it's good to get to 2 now, and I hit create. So what I'm creating right now is basically the app information that is going to show in the App Store. So I can put in the the changes that I made to the game, and if I need to have new screenshots or new translations, I can put all the information in here. So here's what's new in this version, some of the new screenshots that I need to provide, promotional text, and so on. It looks like I need to do that because I haven't done this in a while. So once you have that, then you can go into activity. And if you notice, I have version 2.0.0, and I already have that version here and also here. But like I was saying before, these two don't correlate with each other. You can have version 20 here and then have another version here, and they won't conflict with each other. These ones do need to be unique, so you can't really start over from, you can't really have a 2.0.0.1.0.0 again. It's gonna get rejected. You could have version 2.0.0 and then 1.0.1, and that's gonna get accepted because these build numbers are unique per the version that you're uploading. So in my case, I am doing 1.0.5, which is not gonna work because it's actually gonna put me down here, and that really doesn't make sense for tracking purposes. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say, okay, yeah, I'm in 2.0.0, and then I'm gonna be uploading a new version. So I could have done it that way, and in fact, I'm gonna just hit stop and make sure that I have the right versions, and then just hit archive one more time so that gets archived correctly. So once you have that, and once you have uploaded, which I'll show you in a minute, then once you upload it, you're gonna see something here saying, okay, it's processing. And once the processing gets completed, you can go back into the App Store tab, go into the iOS app, and you can scroll down to where it says builds, and you can associate the build with the iOS app that you're gonna be uploading, basically releasing. So if you go down to here where it says builds, so right now I don't have any builds that I need to, that are available for me to upload because the latest one is ready for sale. But once you do that, you're gonna get an option here to select it. You select it, you update all the information that is in here, hit save, and then basically submit to review, which is gonna allow the reviewers to basically look at your application, test it, make sure that it works, and if it works, then it'll get all approved and then available in the App Store. So now let's go back into Xcode and see where we are. So we're almost done with the signing process and what Apple calls the archiving process, and I'll show you what that creates. In fact, I can show you now what it's done in the past. So if you go to Window, once you have Xcode open, go to Window, Organizer, and then Organizer, it's going to show you all the different archives that I have uploaded. So I've been deleting them because they take a lot of space. Like if you, so like the ones for Cubics, I think are about 300 to 400 megabytes. So right now I don't have any there. Let me see, I don't have any archives for any of these, except for some prototypes that I created for a face tracking application. So all they are is basically like zip files. So if I go and look at one of these archives, we can see how they look like. So you can basically right click on it and then show in Finder, and that should show them in the Finder. It's like it's taking a little bit. Okay, there we go. And I think I just open it. Okay, there we go. So this is what it is what they call an XC archive or Xcode archive. And that's what iTunes is expecting you to upload. So like look at this one. This one is the face tracking app, which is very small, and that is already 646 megabytes. So that's what I've been deleting most of them, because imagine I have all these different games, all these different apps, and if I keep you know, the 20, 30 versions that I have for each, then my Mac will run out of space pretty fast. I can also see the Mac apps that I have, and I think I don't have any of those either because I've been deleting them. And yeah, all of them are deleted. So let's wait until this one looks like we have a few more tasks to be done, and then it should create a new archive under Cubics. So I'm just gonna close this guy. So we have a few more steps. So as it's going through this process, basically, you know, validating, it already did the build process, and is, you know, you can see everything that the Unity built for you. So this is your entire game running in Xcode, and you know, it's making it compatible with iOS. So you can see the data folder, all the different classes that Unity is generating for you, and some of the frameworks, the libraries that you're using, and also some of the plugins. So now it's trying to access the keychain, so it doesn't have my password, so I'm just gonna put in that. I should have probably selected always allow, so I don't have to do that every time. Just gonna do that one more time. And there we go. We have the Unity, we have our Cubics game, which is in this case Unity iPhone. And now it's when you can actually distribute your game. So now the game is being signed. We build it for iOS. Is iOS universal. So now if we need to distribute it, we can click on distribute. If we want to validate it just to see if we have everything that we needed. One thing that we didn't check is we didn't check if we had all the images that we needed. So one way to check, if you go back to Xcode and then go into images and then XC assets, which is Xcode assets, then go to app icon. It looks like it did work. So if you have a 1024 by 1024 and that is associated with your, basically with your icon back in Unity, then it automatically created all these different versions for me, which is awesome because I don't have to worry about that. And that's the other thing, like if you don't have, for instance, some of these correctly set, or you didn't set the settings correctly, the validation process is going to fail. So before we do the validation, you can do distribution, and that's basically going to do the same thing. It's going to do validation and distribution. Then here you can select, I want to distribute to the iOS App Store, hit next. You can either do assign and export without uploading, or you can send the app to the App Store. So we're going to select the first one. Now it's going to do some analysis, it's going to do some checking, and then make sure that you have everything set up right. And this is basically where I'm going to wrap it up. And once you go through this process and you hit next and you upload it, it's basically going to send it to the Apple Store. And once that is basically sent, Apple has a process that it's going to run in the background, and it's going to do a bunch of checks. If everything looks good, you should get an email from Apple saying that your build has been validated, and then you should be able to associate it back to in the Apple Store for you to send it to the reviewer. So that's basically everything that I wanted to show you guys. If you guys have any questions, let me know through the comments, and don't forget to subscribe and share this video.